Renata, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm super glad to be here today.
We will dive into an area that you really are focusing on, which is entrepreneurship for women. We at the World Bank Group, in fact, have put jobs as our North Star, if I can put it that way, because we believe the creation of jobs is the best way to lift people out of poverty, create economic prosperity, but also provide for dignity. And we have identified that it takes multiple measures and investments and interventions to create jobs. What are your thoughts and reflections on job creation today?
So that's an excellent question, because entrepreneurship is one of the quickest and easiest way to provide jobs, right? Because if you own your businesses, or if you're going to open a business, you don't have to be in college for maybe 5-6 years. So in countries such as Brazil, that we still lack education so much in many ways, entrepreneurship is a wonderful door to go into the labor market, and maybe once you're there, you can be more educated, you can make training courses. That's exactly what we do at Sebrae. So we basically work with adult education in planning, making a business plan, financing, access to markets, access to innovation. And in Brazil, we have 30 million entrepreneurs. It's a huge task, but we also are a very huge institution. We are in every state of Brazil. We have more than 3,000 spots of attendance, and we work with both digital and in-site training courses.
That's wonderful. So let's get in a little bit on this issue of starting a company, which is, of course, the dream of entrepreneurs, and that's what your organization also very much helps them do. One of the big challenges we see across countries is actually the steps required to be taken to open up a company or to establish a company. Would you say that Brazil's procedures for starting a company are good, could be better, were bad, are now actually great? And maybe the second question would be, sometimes we don't see level playing field always between men and women. Or there could even be a level playing field on paper, but how it plays out in reality is also very different. And I hear a lot about access to finance and so forth being a big impediment for women when they're trying to start a business. So, ease of creating a company in Brazil and level playing field.
All right, so in terms of creating a company in Brazil, yes, we still have, I could say, a little bit of bureaucracy to handle. But in terms of micro and small businesses, those are the businesses that we work for at Sebrae, which is the Brazilian Small Business Development Institution. Things are much easier. For example, we do have in Brazil what we call MEI, micro entrepreneur. This type of business, you can open it online, and then you have a registration number online. Of course, if you have a business is regarding like food and beverages, that you have to have specific, authorizations, you will have it. But in terms of bureaucracy, if you're talking about small businesses, especially those that are micro businesses that earn up to 81,000 reais per month, and you can have only one employee, yes, it's super easy. And that's the majority of the businesses in Brazil. So in Brazil, we call small businesses those that make up to 4.8 million reais per year. And that's basically 98% of all businesses in Brazil. So it's really important in terms of job creation and also income creation. Women still face more barriers than men, and those barriers are 100% cultural barriers. Right? It's not our fault, it's just culture.
Interesting, so it has nothing to do really with business skills.
Absolutely not. Let me give you some of the numbers. So in Brazil, we have 30 million entrepreneurs, both men and women. 10 million are women, so a third. We are 52% of the population, so why is it, right? Well, then when I was beginning organizing this program, we found out that women in Brazil are 20% more educated in numbers of years of study than men, so we are more educated. But women-led businesses make less, kind of 15% less money than men led companies. So we are more educated in one hand, and our businesses make less money. Why is that? Sebrae data shows that women entrepreneurs dedicate 17% less hours to their companies than men. And we know that by national statistics that women in Brazil dedicate the double amount of hours to daycare, taking care of the elderly, household tasks, so on, than men. So we just don't have the time. And when we finally have the time, we are very, very busy, and we don't have the energy to dedicate to our enterprise. So one of the things that we do in Sebrae and in Sebrae Delas is advocate for public policies that tackle this problem, such as universal daycare, access to daycare, full-time school, community restaurants, and of course, networks of help that women can have.
So interesting. So notwithstanding these challenges, Sebrae Delas, the organization that you lead, has actually been quite successful, because the number that I saw, which I think is impressive, is that you've helped about 500,000 women become entrepreneurs. If you were to identify, 2 to 3 key success factors that made these women successful in becoming entrepreneurs under the program, what would you say they are?
Well, I would definitely say that those women that develop soft skills are the ones that are more prone to succeed. We focus on our program on soft skills development, especially through mentorship.
But you've also demonstrated that you have a huge amount of interest and passion in this topic. It comes through. Tell me what led you down this path. What's your own personal kind of story that led you to want to work in this field?
I was born and raised in Brazil, in Brasilia, and although we have a wonderful country, we still have a country with a lot of inequalities. Since I was very young, I just couldn't think about other things than we have to do something, right? Why is it that someone is so rich and there's another person that is so poor? And since we're talking about development, I wanted to do something about development, and I found myself enriching development of my country through entrepreneurship. When we tackle these groups that are, subrepresented in our society, the results are even bigger, right? And then I just wanted to know why is it? And I'm really interested in this cultural aspect, as you might notice. And besides Sebrae, I had the opportunity to co-found an institution, an NGO called Alumna, which is an NGO that provides mentoring, professional mentoring, career mentoring to women in their universities. When you're the first person of your family to go to university, if you don't have, a rich background, and things are difficult to reach success. So I think that's it. That's a little bit of what I do.
It's a little bit of what you do. You say it very nicely. But what I really like about what you're describing is that in helping these women, you're actually almost taking a life cycle view, because you're helping them think through all of the different issues that they may be feeling, but they don't know how to confront, or they may not know yet that they will feel and have to confront, because you're taking a very integrated, holistic approach to being an entrepreneur is actually being who you are and bringing your whole self to the table, because you will meet these issues and you will have these feelings and you will have these cultural barriers, one way or the other, that you're going to have to deal with. Well, Renata, don't give up, because I think you're changing so many people's lives by what you do. So thank you so much for being with me here today.